What do you say we let people in on a conversation we have all the time? Andre Ward, Tim Bradley, Mark Kriegel, I'm Joe Tessitore, and that is the welterweight division that baffles us, frustrates us at times, but also is wildly entertaining because it's top-heavy with great fighters and great names. We just want to see them fighting again. And obviously, between the pandemic, between some unfortunate circumstances, and sometimes the business of boxing, we just haven't seen the action. Now, we're going to get back to action soon enough because Bud Crawford, a guy who many up here feels is the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, is going to be taking on the former belt holder in Kell Brook. And then Spence will be going up against Danny Garcia December 5th. But we haven't seen Spence since going all the way back to when he just got past Sean Porter in September of 2019. We haven't seen Pacquiao, who's the WBA champion, since his masterful win against Keith Thurman in July of 2019. And Crawford, that was against Egis Kavyaskis last December. Got to get this division going. How do you size things up at 147 pounds?
One of the things that the division suffers from is the legacy of a great fighter, and that's Floyd Mayweather. Floyd earned the right to fight who he wanted to fight, but at some point along the way, your legacy, your achievement in the ring became crossed with how many pay-per-view buys you had, how much revenue you raised. I'm not diminishing Mayweather's legacy, but I do think that this is one of the unfortunate aspects that he's left behind. What is your legacy? Is it who you beat, or how much money you made?
I think there's a lot of truth to that, but I would say this about Floyd. I think Floyd did both. I think he cemented the legacy and he made the money and got the pay-per-view buys as well. But I think it's true in respect to the next generation. You know, when I look at Floyd Mayweather, his career to me is a tale of 2 decades. You know, the first decade is Pretty Boy Floyd, a guy from Grand Rapids, Michigan, moved out here with his uncle and his father, and he's trying to make a way. He's standing on his soapbox every chance he gets, and he's screaming that I'm going to be the greatest, I'm going to be the cash cow. Nobody was really listening at that time. Then he turned into Money Mayweather, and like you just mentioned, he earned the right to fight who he wanted to fight, and then obviously he went on and, you know, made hundreds of millions of dollars and retired. The young generation, they just focus on Money Mayweather. They don't look at the Pretty Boy Mayweather phase and understand what he had to go through to get to Money May and build himself to a point where he could earn that right. They don't want that stage, they want the ending. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing in this division in some respects and others is I've made it, I'm the top dog. But when I look at your record, you haven't really fought anybody.
I disagree slightly. No, I do. No, I just look at it from both sides, man. I think that, let's say, PBC side. Okay, they're fighting each other. And I think eventually whoever rises out of that portion will eventually fight Terence Crawford.
We hear a lot about the best fighting the best. We know who the 2 best are in this division.
By a mile.
It's Terence Crawford and Errol Spence.
I get that,
and
but
you can talk all you want about it. Either you fight or you don't.
But you just had Spence just had the car accident. Then you got the pandemic that happened. And, you know, Spence has 2 belts now. You know, he's going to try to accomplish the 3rd belt, maybe against Manny Pacquiao.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, Timmy. What is your read of Pacquiao coming off a sensational win against Keith Thurman at that age of his? And now, you know, you don't see a fight on the horizon, but you see talks of a cash grab exhibition against Conor McGregor. McGregor's going to fight in January in UFC, but then McGregor's openly talking about taking on the cash grab exhibition.
I don't have a problem with that at all. I mean, Manny Pacquiao has shown you he fought the young lion, you know, in Thurman. He beat him. You know, like now he can do whatever he wants. This is Manny Pacquiao we're talking about. If he wants to fight Conor McGregor for lots of money, it makes major sense. If I was in his position, that's what I would do.
McGregor-Pacquiao interests me, but, you know, I'm a sucker. It's a legit money grab. But the question is, do you want the best guy?
Eventually. Eventually.
What's eventually?
This is what I see Spence doing. Because this is what it's about. It's about coming down to the 2 best fighters that we think in the welterweight division. He's going to collect everything over on that side. Once he collects everything on that side, now he comes into the fight and he says, I'm the A side. Hands down. I get the more money than you do. All right? Terence will step up.
For some reason, this division, more than any other division, is the business of boxing rather than the boxing of boxing.
Well, they have the majority of the welterweight. So,
yes.
You know, I think Tim is laying it out just right. My only thing is this, and I'm not a guy that feels like Errol Spence is not fighting anybody. Like, he went on the road and fought Kell Brook to get his belt, right? He fought Sean Porter in a war. It's not an easy fight when you fight Sean Porter.
Never is.
He had a life-altering car accident. We hope he's good, but he's getting ready to fight Danny Garcia, another top 10 welterweight that he can't sleep on. So he's not like not fighting anybody. He's building his legacy. My only thing is this. You can't call yourself the top dog, the big fish, the best guy in the world until you face Terence Crawford. That's my only thing.
I rest my case.
Well,
that's my only thing.
Wait, I have a question. As much as any other sport, we're in the storytelling business. And one of the problems going back to Pacquiao and Mayweather is that it took longer for those guys to make one fight than it took Ali and Frazier to have a trilogy. And that's the difference.
How long we been asking for this fight? For some years now. It's been a couple of years since we've been asking this fight, and it hasn't happened yet, and it hasn't happened since. But it's not going to happen because they have their own agenda on the other side.
Yeah, it's called money.
They have their own agenda. They have all the welterweights over there, man. They're gonna fight. They're gonna fight. They're gonna fight each other first. The winners, they're just gonna step up and fight Terence Crawford.
I clearly see the game plan, and I respect it. I do. I'm not mad at it. All I'm saying is, if two fighters want to fight, all of a sudden, that two-side thing, that line starts to dissipate a little bit. Either side starts to figure it out.
And it will.
Hello,
so what does
Tyson
that
Fury,
Deontay Wilder.
And it will. It will.
What does that tell you?
Somebody doesn't want to fight, or at least not right now. I'm saying just not. To your point.
You saying Spence don't want to fight? Man, listen to me.
Timmy, I'm not trying for the headlines. I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying that they have a game plan right now, and it's working, so he doesn't want to fight him right now. That's clear. If he did, they would be working on making the fight. Am I off by saying that?
No, you're right.
That was your point, and I'm agreeing.
You're right.
That's all I'm saying.
You're right.
If I'm wrong, say I'm wrong.
No, you're right, man.
Okay.
You're right. Spence has enough work over there to do what he needs to do. Crawford's going to have to either stay still, be patient, or he's going to have to figure some things out.
I think it comes down to the question we started with. What do you really want more? The legacy in the ring or the dollars?
How about all of it?
There's only one way to get all of it.
Fight.
Crawford and Spence to be in the ring opposite each other.
And I
at
think,
the right time, not over-marinated.
I think it will happen. I am optimistic, and I believe that the fight will happen.
(36-0), 27 knockouts for Terence Crawford, getting ready now to defend his welterweight championship against Kell Brook on November 14th. As the years go on, what do you appreciate about him?
His dedication to the sport. You know, as far as I know and as far as what I've seen, he lives a clean life. He respects the game. He's a hard worker. You know, his competitiveness is out of this world, and that's like a big thing if you're going to be a reigning champion. You know, he's run through 3 divisions. He's working on his 3rd, but I mean, he's, you know, been undisputed champion at 140. You know, he went to Scotland to go get his belt, you know, at 135, and he's beaten everybody in style that you've placed in front of him. And when I watch him today in his current form, I get the sense that he's not done yet, like he's not at his peak.
You say his dedication to the sport. I'll add his passion for the sport. You can count hundreds of times where he's been in an arena and you look around and it's the prelims and there he is sitting ringside. He loves boxing to no end. Absolutely loves it. And I think he also loves the fact that now, with the team they have together and the stable that keeps growing, he can share that passion.
Well, I think that what he's built with Bomac in Omaha, the idea that Omaha, which was nowhere on the boxing map.
People mocked it.
Before Terence Crawford is now a magnet for talent. What I admire most about him is that he was not most likely to succeed. He was not the pick that everyone had coming out of the amateurs. And he was from Omaha. Every break he got, he had to make himself until he ran into this guy in a sparring session. And it's very rare that you can do that in a sport like this without infrastructure behind you, without managers behind you, without sponsors behind you from the time you're a kid. He's done that.
Well, I knew from the first sparring session how special he was. He was a very respectful guy. Came in with the little plaits in his head. He was kind of quiet.
Where you were in your career then?
You know what? I was at the time I was a unified 140-pound champion.
You was a bad man.
I was a bad dude. I was. And he came in. He was quiet, by himself, no coach, no trainer, just by himself. Warmed up by himself. And as soon as the first punches were thrown, boom, boom. He made me miss, and I was like, okay, all right, what does this guy know? And then boom, out of nowhere, he set me up. At that point, I knew, I was like, this guy is different. And so I raised the intensity, thinking that he would fold up.
Tried to break him.
He raised this intensity. And as I kept rising, he kept rising. I was just like, wow, this guy is phenomenal. Then I found out that this guy's a right-hander, that he's not naturally left-handed. And he boxed me left-handed the whole time.
Who closed the show left-handed now even better than right-handed sometimes.
But what I love most about Terence is his heart. You talked about the boxing skills already. His heart. He is a man's man. He is real.
When you talk about heart, like, the heart metaphor goes all sorts of ways.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. How do you measure that in a fighter, right?
He is mean.
Yes, he is.
Oh,
he is a naturally mean temperament.
The Kavyauskas fight.
He's this incredible bundle of contradictions. He has this mean streak. It's sadistic.
It really is.
And he is, I've been around, the greatest family man I've seen. And it's extraordinary to see. He can reconcile these contradictions. I couldn't, but he can. It's extraordinary to see.
It is.
It's something different about him. And he doesn't have the flashiest style, but he gets it done. You see him in tough moments like the Kavyauskas fight. It's funny because, he got buzzed, he got hurt, and that's all people want to talk about.
It's part of boxing.
That happens. If you fight enough professional boxing
part of
rounds,
boxing.
you're going to get buzzed. You may get dropped. Things are going to happen.
But what happened after?
But that's my question. I sit back and I say, well, let me see how he responds. And he didn't fight his style. He willed himself to break Kavyauskas.
Right?
So when I see that, I don't get enamored with the fact that he got hurt. I get enamored with the fact that, man, you see what he just did?
Yeah.
That's not even his style. He broke this guy fighting his fight.
See, there are elements of him that you can't really put a finger on. And I think you're all hitting on it. There's the will, there's the heart, there's the intangible, there's the God-given stuff, there's the learned stuff. But, and you touched on a little bit, just that little bit of nasty. He reminds me of moments of late 70s, early 80s Hagler at times, where he's gonna make a decision and you're gonna know it. You're gonna know, you can't quantify it, but you're gonna know it, you're gonna like it, and then the more you watch him, you're gonna love it.
And we have, I think for most of the time we've been together, had him as the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. But unlike, say, Vasily Lomachenko, he does not have the means to prove it.
That's correct.
So you have this extraordinary talent who's made all of his own breaks. He is concerned with legacy. I promise you, he is more concerned with legacy than money. But he has, tactically, strategically, economically, he has no leverage to prove what previous generations, like guys like Hagler, could. I'll fight the best because that's what guys do. He doesn't have that available to him.
So what do you
That's
think
a
will be
damn
his
shame.
legacy?
But I think he already has. I mean, we just talked about his accolades. Like, he's
Solidified.
undisputed 140-pound champion.
Correct.
Like, and people forget that when he fought Post-All, go back and read the articles. He's undefeated.
Undefeated.
A lot of talk about, man, this guy
Dangerous.
may give Terence some pride. He just made Post-All look like he wasn't nothing. Ndango had hype, man. This dude is dangerous. He just made Ndango look like he was nothing, and that's what great fighters do.
That's what they
so he's
do.
built his legacy to a point. And I'm going to be more optimistic, Mark. I think he's going to get the opportunity, and I think it will come against Errol Spence.
Let's talk about that fight. Let's talk about stylistically how that fight could possibly play out. When I look at it, I see Terence Crawford. Like you said, he's mean. He can box from the southpaw position. He can box orthodox. He can be the counterpuncher. He can be aggressive. I feel that he has more skills than a fighter like Errol Spence. I'm not taking nothing away from Errol, because Errol can fight.
And he has the physical attributes.
And the physical attributes, and he's strong. But stylistically, I think it's a great fight. I think that Terence brings a little bit more to the table. Punching power. He can make more adjustments, I feel, on the fly. What does he have?
Spence is a naturally bigger guy. This guy debuted at 154 pounds. He's huge.
What beats a guy that's big and strong? Finesse.
That's why it's such a great fight.
I'll say this. That fight's going to be an all-time great fight.
It is.
We can go back and forth all day. I just know that when I see the
elements.
intangibles, I've seen them both, in both guys. You hit them in the mouth, they're going to try to hit you back.
Yeah.
The skill set, slightly different, but it's there on both sides.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of getting this fight done and sitting back and watching this
I'm going to tell you right now who's going to win the fight. His name is Bud Crawford.
Just make sure you don't switch up.
What do you mean switch up?
That's all I'm saying.
What do you mean switch up? Bud Crawford's going to win the fight. He brings more elements and he has more layers to his game. I think, honestly, in the next few years, if Crawford doesn't get that fight, I could see Crawford retiring. Right now, if Crawford was to retire, I could see Crawford still being in the Hall of Fame.
Shame on boxing if that happens.
I honestly can see that.
Crawford's not going to let a non-Errol Spence fight retire him. It's not going to be that. He's too competitive for that. For him, that would feel like a loss. Like he allowed the system to defeat him. I don't think he's going to do that. I think he would move to 154 before he just retired. If that fight wasn't possible, 54 would be the next move.
Because we've talked about a legitimate challenge to him could come from a four-belt unified 140-pounder. But it could also, he could move up and fight Patrick Teixeira.
Correct.
For a 154-pound title. That, I mean, you could probably
I think
make
by
that
far
deal.
the scenario you laid out that is most attractive if we don't have Spence in the first half of 21 or the middle of 21 is knowing you have an undisputed 140-pounder, whether it's Josh Taylor or Jose Ramirez, who then goes up the next rung on the ladder, just like Crawford himself previously did.
Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez better leave Terence Crawford alone. Stay far, far away.
Why you say that?
For all the reasons we just laid out.
He just made a prediction, man. You didn't give him any respect.
He's right.
See, I make a
better not
prediction.
switch.
He's right.
I make
Better
a
not
prediction
switch.
when I'm sure. I measure twice, cut once.
No way that Ramirez or Josh Taylor got a shot against Terence.
It's a boxing match. They got a shot, but it's slim to none.
Wow. Let's get right into it in terms of Terence Bud Crawford's next fight, defending his welterweight championship against Kell Brook. 39-2 Kell Brook. That's a nice glossy record, but everybody concentrates on the 2. The guy beats Sean Porter to become the IBF welterweight champion and then goes up to 160 to fight Triple G, gets knocked out. His next fight isn't get your feet back under you, it's Errol Spence. And it's those two that everybody circles now. So how do you view Kell Brook?
I think Kell Brook is dangerous. I think he's dangerous. Yes, he's an older fighter. He has experience. He has punching power. He has great timing that can, work against Terence Crawford. I think he's a live dog, and especially when you get an opportunity, when you have that experience, you get an opportunity to fight the best guy in the world. Everybody steps up. So he's been in this position before to where he came here, he beat who? Sean Porter. Okay.
Wins the title.
Wins the title. He was game enough to fight Triple G when nobody wanted to fight Triple
At 160.
G. At 160. That tells me that he's fierce. And then now he's going to be facing Terence Bud Crawford, arguably the best fighter in the world. He's dangerous.
Give me the best case scenario for what Kell Brook can do in against Terence Crawford.
Kell Brook is a former champion, and I think the fight with Golovkin and Errol Spence, that took a lot out of him. And I don't know if he's ever recovered from that. But he's dangerous. And it's a guy who, and I'm always a guy, and you hear me on the air, I'm always going to give a respect to the older guys who may have one great fight left in them.
Yep.
And to Terence's point, sometimes you got to put your head down in the sport and just keep grinding.
That's it.
Keep building your legacy and keep making money and keep positioning yourself for whenever that day comes when you want to walk away. And when you walk away, people are still going to debate. You should have fought that guy. This guy went the distance. That's the nature of the beast. So you hear it, but you don't. To a point, you become immune to it, and you just do what you got to do as a means to an end. And for me, personally, as a fan of the sport and as an analyst, I'm going to personally focus on praising Terence Crawford, giving him his flowers while he's still here, critiquing him where need be, but enjoying him while we have him because he's
I'm not withholding praise.
I'm just saying I'm not going to
great.
focus on the matchups that can't be made. I'm just going to
The
enjoy
matches
the ones
that
can be made.
that can be
That's
made.
all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
and this
all
is
I'm
a great
saying.
matchup.
Well, what do you think Kell Brook's mindset is going into this fight?
This is for all the marbles. This is my last opportunity to show what I'm made of. Through this
put
pandemic.
it all out there then.
Yeah, exactly. Through this
Roll the dice
pandemic,
against the
you don't
best.
know what Kell Brook been doing. He's probably focused. He's probably training right now as we speak. He is probably could have rededicated himself to boxing and train harder and train differently to get ready for this fight because when you're fighting the best, it makes you do some crazy things.
He may be one of these guys who's cursed with his own courage. I mean, going up to fight Golovkin, it may be good for his pocketbook, but, I'm not sure that was great for his career.
Yeah,
it was a huge risk. Spence is a giant too. I mean, that at least is in his division. But
we know he's got a lot of heart. And I think the Golovkin thing was more of a money grab. You know, I think the money was too good to turn down. I wouldn't have advised him to take that if I was his people. I would say it's not all money's not good money, because things went south after that, and then he went right back and fought Errol Spence.
He fought well in that fight until he got his eyesight.
Yes, he did.
But
he fought well in that fight.
Tim, well, but not good enough.
Yeah,
the punishment
not good
he
enough.
took, that's still with him. So you can fight good for 4 or 5 rounds, but you didn't get the job done. That's
Against a
all.
bigger man who can crack.
I don't think it really doesn't matter who Terence Crawford fight, like you said. You know, he's always gonna because he's always gonna they're always gonna have something negative to say about him. It's not me. Everybody else is gonna have something negative to say about him if he's not fighting Spence, like Dre said, or fighting any of the top welterweights. They saying, who are you fighting? You're not fighting anybody.
I don't think that any of us.
This is the best name on his resume when he fights him.
I don't see him knocked as much as you do. I think what's being knocked is the predicament that he finds himself in.
But in the meantime, you know, there are matchups that could be made, like Kell Brook. I mean, if you look at Muhammad Ali's record, you look at Sugar Ray Robinson, you look at Floyd Mayweather, there's names on there that we don't know. There's journeymen on that record. There's names that once was, but when they fought those guys at a particular time in history, they weren't the same guys. And it's just part of the game. You got to fight the next best guy.
I'm just excited that big fights are happening, super fights are happening, and Lomachenko stepping up, making the fight happen. Now we're hearing Terence Crawford getting ready to come back and fight.
Listen, we can talk about who he's not fighting. The bottom line is it's good for the sport to have Bud Crawford back fighting.
I'm just excited that he is back, and we're going to see him in the ring with Kell Brook, which is probably going to be the best name on his resume. If he looks spectacular, people still going to talk. People still going to say whatever they want to say about Terence Bud Crawford because he's not in the ring with Spence. I think Terence Crawford is the best fighter of this generation. No disrespect to Lomachenko or anybody else. Nobody has his skill set. And I'm just, like I said, I'm happy just, you know, the big fights are starting to happen again.
I also think that there's something that we lose sight of. We're looking at Crawford's career. Given all the treacheries of the sanctioning bodies and the greed of the promotional interests and all the rest of it, pulling off a 4-belt unification in today's boxing is one of the most difficult feats in all of sports, and he does not get enough credit for that.
You know, this is a sport where, you know, what have you done for me lately? And I try to constantly look back to remind myself of who we're speaking about, whether it's Crawford or any other fighter. But I'm happy that big matchups where the best are fighting the best, other champions are fighting other champions, where there's serious risk for both guys, are happening. They don't happen as often as they should, right? So boxing is alive and well, and I'm just looking for other great matchups like this moving forward.
And, of course, the WBO Welterweight Championship fight, Terence Bud Crawford against former champion Kell Brook, will be coming to you Saturday, November 14th from right here in Vegas.
Can't wait.